February 8th. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. A storm system has come together across the South and will be responsible for producing many weather hazards across the South Central states and the Midwest over the next day or so. Many of these hazards, it's not just a hazard on the southeast portion of the storm or the back side of the storm as usual. We have two additional hazards as well. Speaking about the backside of the storm, we have the heavy snow as usual, a heavy wet snow. The wetness of the snow will cause snow-to-water ratios to be lower than usual, which would bring down snow totals than what they normally would have been. Also, the lack of intense Arctic air, or rather the Pacific air mixing in with the Arctic air, will create borderline temperatures, which will allow for some melting of the snow. Snowfall accumulations, nonetheless, could very well end up being 6 to 12 inches. As of yesterday, the National Weather Service was saying 4 to 9 inches for places just to the south of La Crosse, Wisconsin. When you go over to the south part of the storm, there is a slight risk for severe weather. That's for places in southern Louisiana. A slight risk means there's a 20% chance for severe weather within a 25-mile radius from where one is standing in that area. Damaging winds is the heaviest risk, but there also is a chance for an isolated tornado or large hail to a half-inch in diameter. Now, in between those two places, we have a flood hazard. Total flood waters or rainfall accumulations between 1 and 4 inches is expected. For example, Little Rock is forecast to see 2 to 3 inches with some isolated higher amounts. Places just to the southwest of Little Rock could be getting up to 4 inches of rain. Another hazard that we have has been issued by the National Weather Service as a high wind watch, and that's due to the very narrow pressure gradient of falling 6 MB within 3 hours or 15 to 20 MB within a 10-hour period as this storm rapidly intensifies. This storm has a lot more moisture than usual due to the fact that it's starting off in the Texas, New Mexico, Mexico area and was already full of moisture before it even became organized as a storm system this morning. Surface dew points in the area yesterday where the system was located was already in the 60s. The Gulf of Mexico was wide open. This will be the fourth consecutive week of heavy snowfall in the Midwest due to a southern stream storm and a lack of any real intense solid Arctic air. What that means is that a higher level of variables need to come together than usual to produce a heavy snow in these events, which makes the forecast probability a little bit higher of becoming a bust than normal when you have a solid Arctic air, so you know the precipitation on the backside is going to be snow. Forecasters say that it will be snow, but you need all these other variables. We do have some cold air feeding into the system, not like what happened in Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, where there was no cold air, yet they pulled off a solid 6 to 16-inch snowstorm, 16 inches in parts of northwest Arkansas. Thunderstorms, possibly even severe, may make it into the St. Louis area. Thunderstorms may make it into the Chicago area. Wind gusts may reach a criteria that could be borderline blizzard, and had this been a dry snow, visibility could very well have been reduced or forecasted to be reduced to a quarter mile or less for eastern portions of where the snow falls. Right now, that would be questionable because the wetter nature of the snow is going to prevent it from being blown around too much, but will create an additional hazard, which would be power outages. A wet snow could accumulate on trees and power lines. The snow is expected to melt pretty quickly. We have a system coming right behind the system. It's a weak system. The first system will not be affecting Minneapolis, Minnesota, but the second system will, but it's a light snow system, which would be affecting the evening commute in Minneapolis. The morning commute will be significantly affected by the significant snow across Wisconsin and Iowa. After the second system, a brief shot of cooler air on Friday, then warmer air returns. A midweek storm system comes in next week, where much of our area here in Chicago will likely be on the warm side. And probably we'll be dealing with another mediocre cold side. The pattern has been so far this winter that these types of storms have been producing 6 to 12 inches of snow on the backside, but that's not always the pattern in winters. Previous winters, in the previous years, it has not been producing snow. So we have that pattern this year, but when will that pattern be broken? I don't know. We're getting further into February. I think we'll continue to see the 6 to 12 inches on the backside despite the lack of Arctic air. You have been listening to the podcast Weather with Enthusiasm. This trailer was updated at the very end of January 2023. We have two things going on. We have evaporative cooling and we also have dynamic cooling, and the two are coming together to produce a major snowstorm in the deep south. The only time you could blame cold air on climate change is when it's a result of the stratosphere warming, which is what causes all the Arctic air to come down south. The way to get a 6-inch snowstorm here in the Midwest and in the Southern Plains has always been you need 3 ingredients. It's hard to believe the numbers that are being forecasted. Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning. Yes! Hey, we have a special guest on our show. What is your name?
Kitabis.
27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my God.
That's a time of celebration. Just Google Weather with Enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.